This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You are listening to Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, looking spiffy. My goodness, bro. You know definitely how to cut a rug, and you dress up well. My cousin in studio, Adam the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Hot as 10 clams in the sand, bro. It's what I do. It's what I do's. What's going on, man?
Listen, Wednesday was an absolute nightmare. I damn near blew all over the studio. I couldn't believe what kind of windstorm there was in Michigan. Get the call from the wife. She's like, well, don't want to alarm you, but there's some shingles in your yard, and there's a table basically flipped over. I'm like, okay, we had one table. Do we have any more? Nothing blew into my yard, but damn near half of my table set is now in my backyard, potentially in other neighbors' yard. And then you hear about Michigan's plane on its way to D.C., damn near, crashes. And I'm like, oh, no. This podcast was born because of my fear of flying. And I'm like, oh, heck no. I would not get on a plane. I don't care how much I spent. If the windstorm says 60 miles an hour and it's going to be potentially treacherous, I ain't trying to land in no windstorm. I don't care. I'm avoiding it, man. Michigan weather, my goodness. Did it affect you at all on Wednesday?
Oh, yeah. When I drove out to Lansing, there's a little conference out there that I went to, and I almost got blown into some black lady driving next to me, almost got blown into a giant truck driving next to me. A giant truck almost got blown into me while I was driving. It was absolutely nuts on the road, man. You know what I found? I found if you could get on a stretch of either 96 or 696, and it's got the cement walls up there, it kind of knocked some of that wind down, didn't blow you all over the road. But if you were just kind of traveling and there was nothing on the sides, that wind was whipping, and it was amazing because you could actually see the wind blow right in front of you because it was picking up so much dust and so much debris in the area that it just kind of like windstorms whipping right across your face. The whole car would sit there and slide to the right, slide to the left, and you're just trying to hold on to dear life, man. It was crazy, that's for damn sure.
Listen, man, we got a stacked podcast as usual. The Lions in free agency have kicked off with some big news. We'll talk about that. You wrote an amazing article looking at where the Lions could potentially spend their money. I want to know how you put that together. Very good stuff. We're going to play a round of Doctors in Session. Obviously, Doc and Jock's Wrestling Report. A lot to get to there. And to finish off with the Detroit Tigers. So stick with us. It's going to be a great podcast. But to start off, like we probably always should, a little bit of some therapy for you and I. For me, I want to vent on one thing only. And again, similar to what I think you're going to vent about is people doing their jobs. And so the Detroit Sports Podcast was lucky enough to cover the Horizon League. It was awesome. And so it's funny in that you talk to other media and you go, listen, man, I'm just happy to be in the building. I kind of have a feeling something's going to be all jacked up. Vito got in, but then when I went, Detroit Sports Podcast, nowhere on the list. I'm like, no, come on, what happened? So you got to go to the head guy. You got to go talk to him, be like, hey, do you have me in here? You gave me a pass. What's going on? The guy was very apologetic, and we had a nice, fun conversation. But it's just one of those things where I'm tired of just having to double and triple check that someone did their job. In this life, I feel like how many times do you have to have situations, and I know I always say, it's cool, but things like that irritate me. Just do your job, man. Do I have to really follow up after you, send you 2 and 3 and 4 emails just to say, hey, I'm coming? But people have a hard time doing their job, and it's one of those things where I'm resigned to the fact, and I told you, is that we got to double check every goddamn thing that we do, and you cannot get away with it. If you assume that anything's going to take place, something's going to get all jacked up because it's just too much going on. And the good thing was, and the saving grace for me was, it wasn't like it was only done to me, and he was apologetic. They actually made open spaces to allow for that, which is kind of unusual in my opinion. But, I was telling a media member, I'm like, you know what? What makes me happy and a happy-go-lucky kind of guy is I expect it to go down like that. I expect to be like, hey, I'm John, and they're not going to know who I am, or they're not going to let me in. So when it actually goes well, I'm really happy. So it's one of those things where I think that's a good attitude to have, is expect everything to be all jacked up, and when it's not, you can be really, you can be really, really thrilled.
You know what? You're right on. When I was in Lansing, I was driving home and I was listening to the radio, and I'm gonna be honest with you, man. There's a sports station out there, and some of the hosts that they have are absolutely brutal, like absolutely atrocious. I'm driving in my car, and like I'm furious because I'm listening to this broadcast, and you've got this guy on who has no idea what he's really talking about. He's got another guest on that has no idea what he's talking about, and then the producer chimes in, and he's getting facts wrong left and right. These are facts. Facts, things that are black and white. Like you can't just guesstimate. No! Exactly, Dan. Exactly. You can't get these things wrong. They are facts that were released earlier in the day, and these guys are just sitting there, just kind of like real generally, just kind of throwing things out there. And I'm just like in my car. I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're wrong. He ran a 4.43. No, you're wrong. This is the tackle's name. No, you're wrong. That guy's Riley Reef. He's probably gone. I was like, how do you have a radio show? How are you a radio host? I do a podcast with you, and we were much more entertaining than these clowns. On top of it, we get almost everything right whenever we talk because we're not going to bring some whack crap to the airs. These guys, I don't know if they just, didn't have time to show prep. I don't know if these guys just didn't know what the hell they were talking about. It was absolutely atrocious. And because, I'm driving through the land of Spartan, they're sitting there talking about trading the 12th overall pick for Kirk Cousins. Like, would you trade the 12th pick for Kirk Cousins? I would. You're an idiot. You're an absolute boner. I would much rather have Kirk Cousins than Jimmy Garoppolo. Really? Like, you know what you're going to get with Kirk Cousins, right? And I think he's a solid quarterback. He's pretty good. I don't think that he has a lot of potential. He doesn't have a huge high upside. You know who has a huge high upside? Jimmy Garoppolo does. Jimmy Garoppolo looks like he can take a few steps forward and mature and become a much better quarterback than he is right now. You know what Kirk Cousins is? What you see is what you get, bro. That's it. On top of it, he's got receivers, he's got running backs, and he's got an okay offensive line. So if you're Cleveland, do you have these things? I mean, you've got Terrell Pryor, but they're having difficulties coming to a contract with Terrell Pryor. He's a solid wide receiver. Their offensive line is questionable. Isaiah Crowell is a pretty decent running back, but there's another year and a whole bunch of injuries on top of that guy. I just don't see the mix, man. I just don't get it. Yeah, these guys on some wacky tobacco for sure. I just didn't understand it.
And before we started the podcast, you said you had some beef with DirecTV.
I can't stand DirecTV.
A lot of complaints since the merger happened with AT&T. What's going down, bro?
Dude, I've been with DirecTV now for 14 or 15 years. All right, and I switched from DirecTV because I absolutely hated Comcast. I can't stand Comcast. The fact that I have Comcast as my internet provider right now chaps my ass and makes me mad. I have DirecTV and I fell in love with DirecTV. Since the merger with AT&T, it's been absolutely brutal. Their customer service is atrocious. All right, their packages for their television, god awful. All right, I called there the other day because my bill just went up another $10. And I'm like, why is my bill going up? What's going on? I'm getting charged random fees. I'm getting charged $5 for local sports television. That's what the fee is. Local sports television fee. I called, I was like, what the hell is this? And they're like, oh, well, it's a fee that you get charged for your local sports. I was like, are you serious? So I sat there, started going through my bills, and a month ago it was $1. Now all of a sudden it's $5. On top of that, I am now getting charged for the package that I was grandfathered in because I've had them for so damn long. My package has now gone up $20. I'm like, are you serious? Are you kidding me right now? So I call and say, look, what can we do? Because this is outrageous. I'm going to go back to Comcast. I will go back. I will hang up with you right now. I will call Comcast. I will have them come out and I will turn your shit off because it's not that good. When it rains, when it thunderstorms, when it snows, I have to go up on my roof with a broom and dust a satellite dish. When it ices over, I've got to go up on a roof and I've got to break off the icicles from the satellite dish. Do you know how annoying that is? Do you realize how obnoxious that is? And when it's way too windy, guess what happens? My television gets distorted. I'm sitting there recording stuff with my DVR. I have whole shows that are completely missing. It's just black television because of either inclement weather or the signal wasn't strong enough. I'm so tired of DirecTV. I'm like, look, I'm going to go to them. You can cancel Stars, cancel Encore, cancel all my pay channels. I don't want any of them anymore. I need to get this bill down. This is ridiculous. And the lady's like, well, we can't really do anything for you package-wise, but I'll give you like $4 off your Stars and Encore. No, lady, I don't want $4 off. I need like $20 off my bill. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the $4 off, and if you want, you can see what kind of package you want to change to. You just go to the website. So I'm on the website while I'm on the phone with her. I'm like, where? Like, what? You're like, your website isn't even you can't navigate it. You can't. It's a total dumpster fire. So I'm like, look, I need you to walk me through this. Like, I'm not a complete dunce. I kind of get it, right? Like, my mom and the internet, not so good, right? It real lukewarm. Not solid at all. Me and the internet, I'm okay. Okay, I'm not like a roaring boil here, but I'm pretty good on the stove with it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, look, just kind of walk me through where I got to go because this is obnoxious. She gets me in the direction I need to go in, and I'm looking at these packages, and I would have to give up so much sports television. And this is the problem, right? I need the sports television because of what we do, right? What I want my career to actually be. I don't want to be a helicopter cameraman for the rest of my goddamn life, okay? So I need the sports stations. I would have to give up over half of my sports stations. So that means I wouldn't be able to watch the Detroit Red Wings, wouldn't be able to watch the Pistons. I would get the Lions, thank God. But really, who wants to watch those sometimes? And I wouldn't get the Tigers. So my entire summer would just be like, it would be brutal. I don't know what I would do. So anyways, I'm like, that's not going to work. And that's the only one that could really save me some money. There's another package that I could go to. Now my wife's going to end up losing channels if I go with this other package. I would save $5 a month, which still doesn't get me in the range I want to be in. But I would get all my sports stations, but my wife's going to lose TV. So you know what that does? That makes a bigger headache because now my wife's not getting her channels. What? You know what I'm going to do? I'm cutting the cord, bro. I'm looking at either going with PlayStation TV, because PlayStation's got their own network now, and it looks like they're affiliated with 4 or 5 different wireless networks, like Roku and it's PSVU or whatever it is, and like 3 other things. I think Hulu's part of it as well. So I think I'm going to go with them, or I'm going to maybe go with YouTube TV. YouTube TV, I've got a smart TV. I can sit there. I've got the apps on both my TVs. I can watch pretty much everything I want to watch. So I'm out. I'm out of the television game. I can't handle it anymore.
No doubt about it. I've been with Dish Network for a long time, and I guess sometimes they do have these problems where they got to negotiate the contract. So I was without CBS. I was without MTV. I've been without the NFL Network last year. So it's one of those things where a lot of people are cutting the cord, and it's justified. And when you realize a merger is supposed to make things better, but it made it worse for you. But I would say, I highly recommend Dish Network, but I think that if you can find a much cheaper alternative where you can get your sports and you can be creative with the packages, you can damn near watch television and be entertained for about $35 a month.
Dude, I'm paying almost $150 for just TV, okay? That doesn't count whatever Comcast is jabbing me in the behind for internet. It's just excessive at this point. And this is what really chaps my ass about the entire thing. DirecTV used to have some of the best customer service. You would call up and it would be like a windy day and your TV would come in all fuzzy and you'd be missing a show and you'd be like, hey, what's going on? They're like, oh, well, we're seeing some strong winds in your area. I'm like, really? It doesn't seem that strong outside. And they'd be like, yeah, well, let's do this for you. We're going to give your bill a discount because you're missing your show. They'd sit there and they'd throw you an extra $10 and they'd include like a movie package for you. Or you'd call them up and you'd be like, hey, why is my bill so high this month? What's going on? Oh, well, we've had some changes to our fees. Let us help you ease into this transition. We'll discount some stuff for you. And then they sit there for like 6 months. They throw on like a $35 discount. So it brings your bill lower than what it was before. Great customer service to start with. Since the merger, absolutely atrocious. It's brutal.
Sorry, bro. Well, let's talk about some good news, okay? The Detroit Lions made news. Now, nothing can be official until today at 4 p.m. when players can officially sign with their new team. But some news was made on Wednesday when it was kind of speculated that, whoa, the Lions made a splash. They went into the free agent market, and it's not too often that the Lions set the market. And a right tackle was available, Wagner, and he was a former right tackle from the Baltimore Ravens, and he was targeted by a lot of teams. The Detroit Lions went out there, and basically the top-end right tackles were making in the neighborhood of like $7 million. They went out there, and the rumors are that he's going to sign a deal in the neighborhood of $9 million, which is going to correct the market. And some new, right tackles are going to be very happy with Wagner and the fact that, hey, now right tackles are very important. And so when I heard the news, I kind of threw it out there on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. What do you think? And I'm always of the opinion, hey, build within the trenches. Right tackle, offensive line, defensive line. When you can improve that, hey, it was glaring, bro. you look at it, the Lions were not able to run. Shoot, when we talked to Dan Miller at the beginning of the 2016 year, what did I ask him? Go back and listen on our archive on our YouTube page. I asked, can this team achieve balance running the football? Because no team can throw the ball damn near 50 times each and every game. And that was the point. He said, listen, they have to achieve it, some sort of running game. He wasn't even saying to have a good running game. Dan Miller said they need some sort of running game. They didn't even get to the some sort level. It was horrible. It was atrocious. And Bob Quinn has shown that he has eyes. He watched what was going on. And when that run game was so atrocious, he went out there and addressed the need at right tackle. I'm all for it, and I think this is a guy that can produce for the Lions and not be a bust.
Now, Ricky Wagner, like you said, played for Baltimore, and he was NFL Network's #1 tackle, right tackle coming off the board. And in a statement that they put next to his name, they said he's consistent, he's quality play from a starting right tackle. He could be worth north of $10 million per season in this market. So them getting him at $9 million, that's a deal. I like the aggressiveness of Bob Quinn going out there, targeting an issue with this team and working to correct it. The big issue now is, what are you going to do at guard? You've now got your right tackle solidified once he signs that contract, and at $9 million, it sounds like he's a total value, okay? So now what do you do at right guard? Does Joe Dahl now step in as your right guard? Or do you sit there, do you maybe draft a right guard? Is there another guy out there, maybe like a TJ Lang, that you go out and you pick up? Now, that sounds like you're investing a lot more money along that line when you kind of need to address your defense. And the Lions did a couple nice things here leading up to this so-called tampering-free area, where it's like the 2 days before they can actually sign contracts. You can kind of get your ducks in a row, say, yeah, we're going to give you this much money, and come to an agreement. You just can't sign the contract until today at 4 o'clock. But they went out and they offered a free agent tender to Brandon Copeland, TJ Jones, wide receiver, Kerry Hyder. He's probably one of the most important guys you could bring back, because if you remember last season, you had a lot of issues getting to the quarterback. Ziggy Ansah was hurt most of the year, and Kerry Hyder from a defensive tackle position sat there and caused a huge ruckus. He was your leading sack man on this team. They also brought back Kyrie Thornton, who gets a 2-year deal worth $3.3 million, which is a solid deal. You're saving some money there. So all in all, in this little bit of a time that the Lions have had to sit there and kind of get their ducks in a row, I like what they're doing. I like where they're moving at. Again, $9 million per season for Ricky Wagner. Going to come in, going to help solidify that right side. Since you've got him, essentially, according to multiple sources, the best right tackle out there that you could bring in. Okay, that's got to make you feel really good if you're the Lions. You're getting the best guy on the market. That's somebody who's willing to look at your team, willing to come in here, see that you're building something well, and like you said, building from the inside out. On that offensive line, you got to sit there and you got to get that constructed. You just invested a first-round draft pick in Taylor Decker. You've got Travis Swanson, who looks like he took a step forward as a center. Graham Glasgow, a third-round pick who played multiple positions last year and played very well. It looks like your offensive line is coming together, and it looks like it's going to be a very good offensive line for a long time. Bringing in Ricky Wagner for this dollar amount, I think, helps solidify that.
So some rumors that are swirling, and definitely I was all over Twitter on Wednesday, and some names that were talked about being potential free agents in terms of the running back. Now that let's say you start to solidify this offensive line, now you go, okay, can you really go into a season with Amir Abdullah, with the other running backs? No, you course
can't.
not.
Absolutely not.
The
guy can't stay healthy, and you can't hold on to a football.
So you look at some free agents that are out there, and you go, ooh, I'm not taking a chance on an Adrian Peterson because he's damn near, going to want a lot of money. He's going to want probably in the neighborhood of what, $6, $7, $8 million a year. I don't know if he's going to come down because the market won't dictate it. But one of the names, though,
do you really want Adrian Peterson? Before you go any further, do you really want him? This is a guy who over 2 out of the last 3 years has had to deal with injuries, hasn't been on the field, hasn't been able to sit there and make the impact that Adrian Peterson used to make. He's a name at this point. You don't want him. You absolutely do not want him. Yes, he's still a physical freak. He's a specimen of a man, but you don't want him because he's not going to give you the production for the money that you're going to pay. You can get a much better option out there if you're going to pay $6 million. So
the rumors that are swirling, and I don't know if you saw this, was that maybe he would be willing to lower his price because in his career he's made around $97 million total to go over to the New England Patriots. So I like that scenario.
Over there.
Yeah, go over there because LeGarrette Blount likely now is going to be a free agent. Do you take a chance 1 or 2 years and look over to a familiar place, LeGarrette Blount. Dude kind of resurrected his career over there in New England, and you go, you know what? This guy did some things. He was an issue. He had personality problems. He had behavioral issues. But many people right now are going, he's not likely to go back to New England. Do you take a flyer on LeGarrette Blount? I go, you know what? You could solidify that position for a couple years. And you go, that trio, if you had LeGarrette Blount with them, I think it's not a bad look. Not a bad look at all.
No, absolutely no. LeGarrette Blount's not on my list. If I was to sit there and swing and strike out, swing and strike out, and swing and strike out, he'd be like my third or fourth option that I would look at bringing in for a running back. At this point, with the money that you have invested in your front line, there's one guy I'd go out there on the free agent market and look at, and that would be Latavius Murray. I'm still high on him. I think you can get him at a really nice value. I think if you're going to pay him anywhere between $6 to $8 million, maybe do a 3 to 5 year deal, there's a ton of tread left on those tires, and I'm not opposed to giving him that kind of money or that kind of term. If you're not going to go out and get that guy, then I'm going to draft me a running back. And a guy who is a huge point of contention is Joe Mixon. All right? This is a guy that if you can get him in the 3rd round, that's incredible value right there. I know that we've talked about Dalvin Cook, solid. Christian McCaffrey, probably the most complete running back at the combine. Just watching his footwork and watching the way he was able to just be fluid with the ball in his hand, watch his feet, and watch the explosiveness that he plays with and the things that he could do made you salivate, okay? He has moved himself into a 1st round pick because he performed, all right? So you can maybe go get one of those guys, but I don't want to invest a 1st round draft pick in a running back.
No doubt about it. You're right.
I'm looking at somebody later in the draft.
When you look at what LeGarrette Blount did last year, career year, 1,161 rushing yards, league-leading 18 rushing touchdowns. Now, he didn't do all that much in the postseason. He took a backseat to the 2 other running backs, but he does have playoff success. So maybe not for production on the field, but the ability to share in that room with Riddick, with Amir Abdullah, what it's going to take to go in and game out and perform. I think a locker room guy, I feel like LeGarrette Blount would be a nice addition to this team. And maybe if you get 800 yards and 9 touchdowns, it's more than what you got in 2016. I'd take it.
Isn't LeGarrette Blount the same guy who was with Le'Veon Bell when they got popped for weed? Listen, when they were driving in a car? And
that's nothing.
Isn't that how he got his release from Pittsburgh? So he could go back to New England?
But he went to New England and he look at the production.
Yeah, but he see, New England released him. He goes to the Steelers. He ends up working his way out of Pittsburgh so he can go back to New England. Do you trust a guy like that?
I would. Listen, if he's got an offensive line and Bob Quinn has familiarity with him, do you think a guy like Jim Caldwell could keep him in line? Maybe you say no, and I would agree with that. Maybe if you want to argue that Jim Caldwell's not, Bill Belichick and he's not going to keep him in line, but LeGarrette Blount was productive and he's had playoff success. And there's some value in teaching, these young guys what it is like to go in and win. And he's a workhorse. If his only job is, instead of, targeting Ebron in the end zone, instead of targeting the receivers that are going to drop the football, he's got one job. When we are within the 5-yard line, it's LeGarrette Blount time.
Let me read you what NFL.com says here about a running back. All right, now this is the guy that I want them to go out there and target, and the guy I want them to go pick up. All right, a younger version of LeGarrette Blount. Murray is an effective early down power runner, best kept on the sideline during obvious passing situations. Think about this, okay? You have Latavius Murray, and you have him paired with a guy like an Amir Abdullah, with a Theo Riddick. You've basically got your thunder and lightning. You've got your pass-catching duo. You've got your between-the-tackle runner, a guy who doesn't fumble the ball, unlike one of those thunder or lightning or whatever he is, pass-catching wide receiver type running backs that Amir Abdullah is. All right, you've got a guy who averages 4 yards every time he touches the ball. You've got a guy who can sit there and run into the end zone and get you touchdowns. I mean, he had 12 touchdowns last year. That's solid. It's not 18. And I understand what happened with LeGarrette Blount, okay? And that's probably not, I don't think you can expect those numbers to extrapolate if he's wearing a Lions jersey. However, Latavius Murray, I think his numbers, if I was to tell you that you can get a running back here who will give you, I don't know, we'll say 950 yards, maybe 1,000. All right, we haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher, and I can't tell you how long, so I don't want to go with the whole thousands. But we'll say 950, and he gives you 10 touchdowns from the rushing position. Wouldn't you take that? I would take that in a heartbeat. We haven't had that in forever.
But maybe you could get that from LeGarrette Blount at half the price. That's the issue is that some money has to be allocated. We're going to talk about your article and the numbers that are available. And some of that money's got to be allocated to potentially Matthew Stafford in a year or two. And a guy like Latavius Murray probably has multiple teams that are going to drive up the price. So LeGarrette Blount, if he was just 28 years old, would be a perfect fit. But he's 30, and he's coming off of his best year. And plus, he has a relationship with Bob Quinn. Maybe he'll be willing to take a deal and a workable number, maybe with a lot of incentives to get him to play here.
Aren't you the guy who doesn't like taking running backs when they're eclipsing 30?
But not when they're named Adrian Peterson and they want like north of $6, $7, $8 million a year. If you want to make $1 million and a lot of incentives to make it $3 million, and LeGarrette Blount is willing to take a deal like that, where he has to produce to get paid, that's usually the right formula to get guys paid. It's like, hey, this is a guy that wants his money. He wants to carry the ball. He wants the rock. And so I'm saying if you're going to go with an older guy, maybe it's a LeGarrette Blount who's had some success, and then you throw in some incentives to make his ass work. But I'm interested to see what the scenario is going to be with Bob Quinn now that he's made his first move. But I want to also talk about the article that you put out there on our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. And the first thing I want to know is, how did you put it together, and what was your thinking behind the notion of what the Lions' needs were? It's a really good article. Go check it out, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can click on the Detroit Lions tab or the news tab. You'll see it right there. Adam Straczynski talks about some of the Lions' needs. It's a really good article. It was really well received. But I guess the only point of contention, which has been proven now to be false, was many people did not agree with Brandon Marshall coming here. Many people felt like, you know what, this is a guy that's going to be a cancer. And once the news broke on Wednesday that he signed with the Giants, already people were like, Beckham Jr. is going to have a problem with this. This is going to be an issue. How are they going to spread the ball around those three guys, Shepard, OBJ, and Brandon Marshall? There's going to be a problem there. So I'm glad it's the Giants' problem. I think probably of the signings that you put down, I think that was the only one where I went, I probably would put a thumbs down to it.
I'll defend myself with Brandon Marshall when I get there. But some kudos go to you, because you were kind of the impetus that kind of got the hamster on the wheel and got him spinning around in my brain. You sat there and you told me how much money the Lions had to play with as they were approaching free agency. And I was like, all right, well, this is kind of interesting. There's some big names out there, and there's some guys that I would love them to target. So what I did was I sat there and I kind of made a list of what all of their needs were, and there were many. And I then had to go and I had to find some stats to kind of back up my thinking and kind of the play that I watched on the field. And the Lions have holes pretty much everywhere on this team, whether it be defensive line, linebacker, secondary. If you go to the offensive side of the ball, they needed to, as you can see, they needed to shore up that right side of the offensive line. Running back, I'm really low on with this team. I just don't like Amir Abdullah. He can't stay healthy and he can't hold on to the ball. Theo Riddick's the same thing. I mean, last season, you were getting a ton of production from your fourth option, who was Zach Zenner. And I made that point in the article. Wide receiver was another spot that was a little bit cantankerous, and that's because you sit there, you go out, you spend all this money on Marvin Jones, and he plays outstanding, balls out his first two games. And after that, he was kind of a ghost. You lost him. You had no idea where he was. He couldn't hold on to the ball. And that kind of rubbed off a little bit onto Golden Tate, who a guy, when he came in, the story about him was that he caught everything within his radius. He never dropped the ball. And he's playing, at this point, with the highest drop rate of his career. So I went through, found what the issues were and how we could sit there and correct this with some moves in free agency. And going into it, the biggest name out there was Dont'a Hightower. That was a guy I wanted the Lions to go out. I wanted them to get a deal done immediately, because I thought if you could bring him in, if you go back and you look at what kind of production you got from your linebacking core last year, it was a real mixed bag. You had really nobody in that front seven who was even on Dont'a Hightower's level. All right. And look, like I said before, Ziggy Ansah was injured, so that was kind of a thumbs down. You got most of your production from a guy like Kerry Hyder, who was kind of brought in, was almost a throwaway piece. You basically caught lightning in a bottle with that guy. So hopefully that turns out and he has his career renaissance, and that's able to sit there and elevate his production and his performance. He can carry that over into next season. But linebacking-wise, you really didn't have anybody out there who was worth a damn. I thought if you could bring Dont'a Hightower in, solidify the middle of that defense, if you can get anything out of your linebackers going forward next season, it's a total bonus for this team, right? Let's be honest here. You're going to get a guy who's now entering into his prime. He's going to be asking for somewhere north of $10 million, and that's well warranted for what he is and the position that he plays. he deserves that amount of money. All right.
See, but I hate to, break in and interrupt, but see, I think the Lions are going more in terms of what I want, in terms of guys that they can plug in at a cheaper price. News broke on Wednesday evening that the Lions went in and signed Paul Warlow, linebacker. And so I know you want to go out there and get the best guys. You want to go out there and get Dante Hightower. You want to get Latavius Murray, but you got to look at where the big money is going to go. And I think it's going to go towards the quarterback. It's going to go towards the line. It's going to go maybe towards another safety. I think that you had a good intention in terms of what you were thinking, but I think the other notion that you have to keep in mind is cost. You have to keep in mind that the Lions are trying to get productive players at a cheap price. I think Dante Hightower was great. At the same time, though, in terms of money allocated, it was good, but I think the Lions, in their philosophy, are going to try to get guys in the mid-range, not high-end guys, a la New England. Remember, Bob Quinn, GM, big splashes, quarterback. Big splashes, maybe, signing the the extension that they gave to Slay. But too many more, I think the dollars are going to start tightening. Tight pockets, sir.
Back to my soliloquy on linebacker. I thought if you could bring Dante Hightower and plug him into the middle, if you got anything out of DeAndre Levy next year, you now have two pieces at your linebacking core that immediately makes that front seven better. By making that front seven better, you make your back four better, and your secondary all of a sudden gets a little bit of a boost. So my thought process was to address that, maybe add some pieces on the end, maybe add a defensive tackle, because you need to sit there and you really need to strengthen that defensive line because it was absolute garbage last year. As we flip over to the offensive side, I would go with keeping that offensive line young. Build with it and just kind of keep the ball rolling by plugging in good young pieces to sit there and help fill out that offensive line. Go out there, grab that running back who would sit there and make a difference for this team, and that was Latavius Murray. Now, you do need some help as far as wide receivers go. I would sit there and I threw out Brandon Marshall, and the reason I threw Brandon Marshall out there was I think that he's not Brandon Marshall when he was on Denver. He's not Brandon Marshall when he was in Chicago. Brandon Marshall has come a long way, and if you follow him closely, you can see his maturation, and he's a much different player now than he was then. I think if you give him a good quarterback, you can see his production and what he can do. This is a guy who has no problem playing the slot, has no problem going over the middle, and he has the wheels to be able to take it deep. He's a guy who I thought would fit really nicely on this team, especially with Matt Stafford. Him, Golden Tate, and Marvin Jones, I think would be a real nice trifecta as far as wide receivers go.
But do you care at all that on Tuesdays he's kind of in, if you come to Detroit, he'd then have to fly back to New York, tape the show that he does inside the NFL, come back.
What he does on his own time is his own business. No. I mean, as long as he's not sitting there getting high or sitting there breaking rules or being a distraction to this team, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. In the end, I ended up settling on Ted Ginn Jr. And the reason why I settled on Ted Ginn Jr. was because he's a multifaceted wide receiver. He can do all those things Brandon Marshall can do. On top of it, he can provide you with some special teams depth. The guy has no problem returning kickoffs or punts, and he's solid at it. And you've seen him do it over the course of his career. So the way I sat there and kind of looked at this was, how can I strengthen as many holes on this team as possible? So my number one pick was Dante Hightower. I sat there, made the linebacking core better, essentially making the front seven better. I then went out, got the running back that I wanted, which then helped alleviate some pressure for Matt Stafford and those wide receivers. He's a running back that you have to respect. That the opposition's front seven has to respect Latavius Murray. You now have your Thunder and Lightning with your two pass-catching running backs. I then sat there and I thought Chris Long would be a nice addition cheaply for the defensive end position. He's a guy who played in New England last year, had a really nice year. He's on the downside of his career, but he's a guy I think you can get cheaply. He would add some depth, and he would be productive for this team. I then went out and picked up Ted Ginn Jr. because now you have your additional wide receiver that you need. On top of that, he makes your special teams better. At that point, I'm looking at $24 million that I have spent, all right? Approximately $24 million. Like I said, we had 36 going into it. I wanted to allocate some money for re-signing Matthew Stafford because you know that's going to happen, and that's going to take a large chunk of cash. You also had some free agents of your own that you wanted to re-sign possibly, so I wanted to allocate some money for them as well. So I was trying to keep all of this under $26 million. I now have $2 million left over. There's a guy named Margus Hunt playing for Cincinnati. He's a free agent. Now, Margus Hunt, when he was a rookie, he was a guy, I believe he was drafted in the 6th round. He was a guy who I really wanted the Lions to go get about 4 years ago. And Margus Hunt, super raw. He had played football, I think, for only 1 year, played at SMU. He's 6'8". He's like a genetic freak from Estonia. The guy had really no experience whatsoever, but I liked all of his intangibles. You go out, you can get him on a very cheap deal. On top of it, like I said, he's 6'8", he's fast, he's got some power to him. You can sit there and you can play him inside, you can play him outside. He's better as a defensive end than he is as a defensive tackle. If anything, the one thing this guy does is he makes your coverage teams better because of his size. 6'8", it's hard to find guys who are 6'8". He can block a field goal, he can block a kick, he can sit there and he can get to the kicker and get a fingertip on it, and next thing you know, you're flipping field position. So if he doesn't work out and doesn't add the necessary depth and doesn't give you the charge on the defensive line that you want, you at least now have a specialty player for your coverage teams. And in the end, I spent $25.5 million of the 26 I wanted to spend.
It's not too bad. Not too bad. Cost effective. But I think the Lions probably are looking at a little bit of difference in terms of the personnel they want to go out and achieve. And like I said, I think that the money that they want to spend might even not even be add up to $24 million. They want to maybe go way less than that to try to maybe allocate some funds, in other areas too.
I think what they're going to do, real similar to what you said, they're going to do it on the cheap, I think. And they're looking to add depth to this team. That's what they did last year. They went to free agency last year. Didn't make any big names, didn't sign any huge splashes. They just added depth. All kinds of low-key moves. I think this year's a little bit different. I think Bob Quinn kind of was feeling himself a little bit, went out and you got the number 1 right tackle out there. And that's a great move. And that's probably going to be your biggest move. And you're probably sitting there scratching your head like, who the hell is Ricky Wagner? Exactly, he's a right tackle. But you got the best one. So now your offensive line is that much better. And then after that, I think it's all going to be some depth moves and some low-key roster moves.
The good thing is that I think the perception is Bob Quinn's doing a good job. I think we can sit here and go, you know what? There is a philosophy. There is a plan in place. He's not going out here and getting people that are going to come in here and not produce. I feel like so far, some of the moves that he's made are really good. You can applaud him. You can look at it and go, you know what? There is a plan in place. The guy does his homework. Hell, he's even willing to stand in the fire and say, hey, on Tuesday, we're going to be talking to Mixon. We don't care about, what the perception is. We want to know what the deal is. We want to go do our due diligence, sit with the man, and figure out, could he be a fit? Now, could the Lions go out there and draft a guy like Mixon? Man, I don't know. I'm thinking that they want to do their due diligence. They want to know if he's going to slide where, if maybe they could move up, use a draft pick to trade to get him. But I'm not in the thinking right now as we record this that the Lions are going to be really super high on Mixon. But in my overall opinion, I'm very respectful of Bob Quinn saying, listen, it's my job to go out there and do my due diligence, to go out there and figure out what's this guy about. I know that there's going to be heat surrounding it, but if we can give a guy a chance and surround him in a system, why not the Lions and let him go out there because he's been talked about as a top 5 running back in the entire draft. So do your homework. I give him credit. I'm not falling into the notion that, hey, you just ignore the guy. And no one said that they're drafting him. He's just saying, I want to go read up on him. I want to read up on the guy. I want to see what he's looking like. I want to go to his pro day. I want to talk to him, get some sense of where he's at. And good for Bob Quinn. I'm really proud of what he's done now the first 2 years.
So do you believe the whole thing with Joe Mixon? Because you got to remember, the Lions were one of 4 teams to sit there and speak with him before he actually took part in his pro day. Do you think this is more of a smokescreen, or do you think there's maybe some legitimacy with them really having an interest in him? Because this guy's a first-round talent. Where he falls remains to be seen, but this is a guy who's a first-round talent. He has a lot of baggage that follows him. I mean, he destroyed that girl's face. He broke her jaw, broke her orbital bone. He did a lot of damage. The guy served his penalty, okay? So does he get a second chance with this team? And would you have a problem if they brought him in? Because I'm going to go on record right now and say I don't. As long as he keeps his nose clean, I don't have a problem with it. Look, you served your penalty. You did your time. It's time for your second chance. Let's roll. And the one thing that I want from my football team, there's going to be some bad guys on this team. I mean, look at Ray Lewis, right? Ray Lewis killed a man. They erected a statue of him. That dude's a stone cold killer, and
Allegedly.
He's got a statue.
Allegedly.
And he killed a man, and he's got a statue. He was bronzed in a statue, okay? So you're going to have some bad apples on your squad, all right? As long as you keep your nose clean, I don't care about giving you a second chance. I want wins. It's all about W's over L's. And then we talk about it all the time, every time the Lions season rolls around. It's all about the W's. So if he can come to this team and he can produce, I'm cool with it. I don't care. I just don't want them taking a running back in the first round.
No doubt about it. I could not have echoed your sentiments any better. But before we get into the Doc and Jock Wrestling Report, I know we got a lot to talk about in the world of wrestling, but Louis Riddick, a great respected analyst on ESPN, comes out after the Combine, and I knew you loved it. You definitely did a good job tweeting out, keeping me in the loop. I watched a little bit of it, but more in the evening hours, not the live version, the 3-hour condensed version. It was very interesting to watch. A lot of good storylines. Of course, some knuckleheads made some news for the bad stuff they did. Unfortunately, Malik McDowell came away looking really bad, but of course, Louis Riddick comes out and says, oh my goodness, this is the deepest tight end class I've ever seen. I'm like, get the hell out of here. We're not looking down that road. Then I read over and I start going through some mock drafts. I saw Jason Jarvis. I saw, Jerry Mallory's on DetroitSportsPodcast.com. And then I went to the Bleacher Report and I saw Matt Miller's and I'm like, no. Because I always go down to 21 right away, as I said in previous podcasts. I don't really care about the top. I look at what are the Lions going to do at 21. And I saw a name and I couldn't even say it. After the words TE were there, I just flicked off the page.
Let me set the stage here, okay? Let me set the stage.
Hell to the no.
Let me set the stage, all right? So going with your first pick to the Browns, Myles Garrett, he's off the board, all right? He's probably the most complete defensive end in this draft. Leonard Fournette, he's your big running back. He goes number 2 to the 49ers. Marshawn Lattimore, cornerback out of Ohio State, goes at 6 to the Jets. Malik Hooker, safety, who a lot of Lions fans have some interest in from Ohio State, he goes at 7 to the Rams. Now, the guy who me and you want and who had some issues at the Combine,
you know who I am, bro?
Reuben Foster, linebacker, gets picked 9th by the Bengals. Some local interest, Taco Charlton out of Michigan, DN, he goes at 11 to the Saints. He's the one guy that I'd love for the Lions to go out there and get. I think he's a difference maker. He makes an impact immediately. Corey Davis, wide receiver from Western Michigan, he gets scooped up at 13 by the Cardinals. Dalvin Cook, running back from Florida State, goes 19 to the Bucks. All right, would you trade up to get him at 19?
Ooh, not too bad. Dalvin Cook, huh? Individual speed, I saw the game versus Michigan, unbelievable.
You basically flip-flop your 21 for your 19, and you probably have to throw a 5th round, maybe a 4th round pick in there.
That's a likely scenario. In the case that the Lions do move up, Dalvin Cook would be a nice name.
So it now comes to the Lions at 21, and it's David Njoku, tight end out of Miami. I damn near lost my mind when I seen this. I was like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way.
That'd be the biggest troll job in history.
Dude, I was like, are you serious? Like, we've already lived this once. We've lived through this one time, and it was with Eric Ebron, and we all agreed, you don't ever take a tight end with the 10th overall pick. You don't ever take a tight end in the first round. Only the Lions do these things, and they're idiots for doing them, all right? But this is what Matt Miller went on to say about the Lions sitting there making this stupid, idiotic draft pick in his mock draft. All right. He says the Detroit Lions. All right. Lions fans may not want another first-round tight end after the mistake that was Eric Ebron. Yeah, of course. He can't catch the damn ball. But it's hard to look past David Njoku. If he's on the board, it'll be especially hard for general managers like Bob Quinn that grew up in the New England system and know how valuable a game-changing tight end is. Njoku is a beast on the field and enters the NFL as more of a 3-down player than Ebron ever was. He'll open things up for wide receivers, but his ability as a blocker will also help the run game. Njoku has the work ethic and drive to be great. Filling holes on defense will be important for the Lions, but Quinn and Jim Caldwell can't pass on a Pro Bowl talent at tight end. Yes, you can, bro. And do you know why you can? I'm going to tell you why you can. Because at the very next pick, Hassan Reddick, linebacker out of Temple, goes at 22 to the Dolphins. All right? Jabril Peppers, a guy who I don't necessarily want the Lions to pick, a safety, though. I think could be a difference maker. He goes at 23 to the Giants. And Derek Barnett, defensive end from Tennessee, goes at 28 to the Cowboys. There is too much talent defensively still on the board for you to sit there and justify taking a tight end. That's why you can't take a tight end. Christian McCaffrey goes off the board at 32 to New England, and I think that's the perfect spot for Christian McCaffrey because he is a matchup nightmare, and the one coach who will get the most out of him, you know who that's going to be? It's going to be Belichick. This is a 7-round mock draft, so I'll give you the highlights real quick if that's cool with you. Round 2, Lions take DN Malik McDowell, who did himself no help at the Combine, had really bad interviews. That's a guy who, if they took him in the 2nd round, I'd probably lose my mind because he doesn't sound like he's there. Halftime, his motor doesn't run. He doesn't look like he's interested. In the 3rd round, Lions take the running back, Marlon Mack out of USF. In round 4, the Lions take safety Eddie Jackson from Alabama. Round 5, Lions take wide receiver James Quick out of Louisville. Round 6, the Lions take edge rusher Matt Milano out of Boston College. Here's some interesting stuff about Milano. If they can get him in the 6th round, I like this pick. This is why I like this pick. He will be a guy who will come in the very first day. He's going to make a difference on your special teams. He will be a guy who will work his way into either a specialty package or a starting role. He's quick. He's powerful. He's a guy who can make a difference, all right? He's not going to make that difference immediately, but he will work his way into that role where he'll become a fan favorite. Staying in the 6th round, Lions take DN Keanu Davis out of Chattanooga. He's a nice player as well. In round 7, Lions take wide receiver Ricky Seals-Jones out of Texas A&M. So in this draft, Joe Mixon goes at 59 to the Chiefs in round 2, if you're keeping tabs. So I wouldn't like this mock draft. If this is what the Lions came away with, there are some parts to it that I think are solid. I would not like this at all.
No, not at all. So I like the fact that we're still in version 1 and 2 of the mock drafts. Things are going to change as they evolve, as news breaks, as these free agents sign the rest of today and on Friday. So I'm looking forward to the moves so far that the Lions are making. Definitely stay with us at Detroit Podcast on our Twitter page. You can definitely find some great news. Go to our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Great article, again, that you did, putting out what the Lions need, was, and it's a great article. Definitely give it a read, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Let's take a quick timeout. Damn near 50 minutes flew by. We got to take a quick timeout, regroup, do a round of the doctors in session, talk about wrestling, no doubt about it, but we need to take a timeout, regroup, and come back. You're listening to the Doc and Jock Podcast on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc here for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thank you for your continued support and allowing us to keep the studio lights on, the microphones hot here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. If you like what you're listening to, you like the variety of podcasts that you hear, definitely check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. That's the easiest way to support us. You get all the news from the network. You can check out the work from Vito, myself, all the guys that are putting out great content almost each and every day. And hey, if you're prone to shop online, click through that Amazon banner, go about your business, shop, and then when you're on that Amazon page, just bookmark it. Anytime at all that you make an online purchase, it kicks us back a little something and helps us keep this project going. We've been going strong since 2013, and that's been largely due to the support of our supporters, and we greatly appreciate it. DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
Total side note, but you know the one thing I like on broads that really ups the skank level?
What's that?
Extra glossy lipstick. I like it a lot. I don't know why. It's just one of those things that kind of captures my attention, and then just all kinds of awful thoughts end up occurring. Love it.
Nice, especially when we're recording this on National Women's Day, bro.
Well,
nice reset.
Whatever, just telling you how I do.
Way to objectify women.
No objectifying. I'm just telling you what I like. This is what I like. No, generally, I tend to like loose women. It's the way it works. I don't know. I can't help myself.
You know what I like?
It's my kryptonite.
Pay-per-views that you sit down to watch to definitely deliver.
Oh.
How on earth? This is the Doc and Jock Wrestling Report because Adam and I, diehard wrestling fans, and you know what?
Hey, are you going to Raw?
I'm going to Raw, brother.
Me too, bro.
I'm going to Raw. Good job. Yeah. High five. Boom. I got a birthday present from the wife.
Nice.
Hey, yes, sir. So I'm going to Raw. Going to enjoy, both of us, going to enjoy Monday Night Raw. And
the wife's going too?
Wife's going too.
No way.
I'm taking the entire day off of work. Going to go down to the casino and enjoy the day on the 13th. And then Raw will happen. And hopefully, maybe now, The Undertaker will show up. Somebody, maybe Goldberg, Lesnar. And we'll talk about Raw in just a few minutes.
Maybe Finn Balor?
Maybe Finn Balor. Ooh.
You didn't even think about that, did you?
I did not think about that.
Yeah, Finn Balor, perhaps.
See, I don't know. Now I don't want to be
putting it out there.
See, now you basically ruined it because now it could, now you overhyped it.
Well, this is why, okay?
Detroit, he does deliver in Detroit.
He does. Well, here's the thing, okay? So he's already doing house shows, and he's basically been medically cleared. It's when does he make his TV appearance in? He is supposed to be the fallback if Seth Rollins can't wrestle Triple H. So at some point, you got to get him on TV so you can maybe go down that direction if Seth isn't healthy enough or medically cleared.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Fastlane for a second. We can gloss over that. That was just a horribly written pay-per-view. I tweeted out the sentiments exactly how everyone saw it. It felt like a long, boring-ass Raw. and the matches didn't seem right. When you have Jinder Mahal on a pay-per-view, that doesn't make any sense. And you give him a couple segments? Jinder Mahal, get the hell out of here.
It's a time filler, bro.
You don't have it. The pay-per-view was damn near.
You know why it's a time filler, though? It's because you got your main event that's going to go 22 seconds.
But by the time they got to the main event, it was 11:57.
It was ridiculous.
You can't have these pay-per-view, bro. 2.5 hours. Succinctly wrap this up. 2.5 hours. You don't need to have these pay-per-views going damn near 3 hours. It was poorly written. And then, a couple of the angles that were just atrocious. You don't have Braun Strowman lose, dude. You built him up as a monster. Roman Reigns is the guy that defeats him clean.
That is the one thing that's
stupid. Why? I don't understand the writing in the last week. Like, what's going on? I understand the Daniel Bryan model where you have the guy that's super popular get crushed so they can build up hype. I get all that. But you're supposed to elevate these guys. Braun Strowman, if he's going to lose, cannot lose to Roman Reigns. Come on, bro.
And he's had his best 6 weeks in the ring leading up to this pay-per-view, and you let him... He basically just went on and slaughtered Roman Reigns. Just crushed him. And then you have him lose? How do you have him lose? And if you go to tell me that, hey, well, he sat there and he beat the pants off him for, 10 or 15 minutes in that match, he looks strong. No, you just got him crushed. You basically buried him again.
Poor writing, poor match placement. How on earth are you going to disrespect the women by putting them after the Braun Strowman match? That was the only match by far that was good. So you have a good match. The fans are into it. It's hyped. Of course, the result didn't go people's way. But then how on earth are Bayley and Charlotte supposed to go out there and put on a match afterwards? It was a dead crowd for a match that was supposed to be kind of more important than that. So that's a terrible placement for that match. And it just seemed like everything was half-assed. It really felt like the best way to put it was, I'm going to give that pay-per-view an F. Entirely. It was just an F pay-per-view. And
it was awful.
It was an awful pay-per-view.
It was boring from start to finish.
Boring for entirely 3 hours. I guess I liked the fact that...
You know what the best part was?
What was that?
Looking at Renee Young in the beginning. That was the best part.
Goldberg gets the belt. I guess you could do it that way, but to have Kevin Owens go in and out of the ring was stupid.
Wait, let me prod your brain here with this, okay? Because you bring this up, all right, and just kind of made something click in my head. Goldberg's now your WWE Universal Galactic Superman of Mars champion, right? He's going to sit there, carry the belt into WrestleMania, where I'm presuming he's going to lose to Brock Lesnar because that will finally be his squash match, all right? So now you have the belt on a part-timer who's going to lose the belt to a part-timer who shows up even less than the part-timer who currently has the belt. We're never going to see the Universal Galactic Superman Mars Championship ever again because these guys don't ever show up for TV. They don't ever show up ever, and when they do, their matches are usually garbage.
Now, bro,
you have Kevin Owens lose this belt to a part-timer. Are you serious?
Not even the part-time thing. Let me get you to suspend disbelief here. So you're Chris Jericho, right? You got the United States title. So you cost your boy the title. So your match at WrestleMania is for the U.S. title instead of the big belt?
Right, which makes no sense, right? So how do you feel about being Kevin Owens at this point, right? Like, you've held the belt. You're I'm doing finger quotes here because I know you can't see me. You are the longest reigning world Universal Galactic Superman of Mars champion in all of WWE history. And you drop your belt to Goldberg, and now you're going to wrestle at WrestleMania for the U.S. Championship?
And if you're Chris Jericho, okay, I guess you could say that, yeah, it was nice to cost you, but now you got to fight for your belt.
Right.
So it looks stupid.
Again, poorly constructed. What are we doing with these storylines? This is awful.
The belt doesn't have to be on Goldberg to make the match versus Lesnar at all.
No.
They're behemoths. Let Kevin Owens fight it out with Chris Jericho. The matches are going to be awesome. Hell, you could have a similar WrestleMania 6 kind of moment where, hell, you say, I want to unify a title or have both titles and let Kevin Owens win it. Or they're going to have a good match. Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens are going to have a good match. It's just, the setup was nice, but it was predictable. Andrea even knew it. My wife knew. She's like, Chris Jericho is going to come out and interfere.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody was calling it. Yeah. But, I mean, which ends up setting up one of the best parts of Monday Night Raw.
That was awesome.
So we open Raw up with Jericho standing in the middle of the ring, and he calls out Kevin Owens. And they basically cut some of the best promos upon each other. I was sitting there working on something for that long ride I had out to Lansing on Wednesday. I was working on something there, and I looked at the wife, and I had chills. I said, I've got chills. I love Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is outstanding. My wife refers to him as the gay magician, and he does look like a gay magician, okay? But I respect Chris Jericho so much. The best. I want to turn the network on, and I want to force her to watch old Chris Jericho matches because she just doesn't understand. She doesn't have the respect and affinity for him because she never watched him early in his career. Chris Jericho has reinvented himself so many times, and he cuts some of the best promos you will ever hear. And it's unfortunate that he's going to go on to face Kevin Owens. He's probably going to lose his belt at WrestleMania. It's whatever. It's the Universal Champion or USA Championship, whatever it is. It's whatever. But I love Chris Jericho, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Raw was dedicated to pushing WrestleMania storylines. In one of the biggest moments of the night, you had Braun Strowman at the end come out and was like, I'm going to dress you, Roman Reigns. And all of a sudden, again, poor booking with Braun Strowman. You have The Undertaker come out and Braun Strowman pussifies and walks away. That was stupid.
You made him look so weak.
That you can't do that.
Again. So 2 nights in a row, you crushed this guy that you have spent all this time building up to. Why? What's the point? Well, what was the point of, again, back to what's the point? What was the point of Charlotte sitting there having her streak ended by Bayley? Again, what's the point? More horrible writing, more horrible booking, and now you've got your monster, the guy who should be feared, who has done a great job in the ring, has turned people's perspective around on him like myself. I hated Braun Strowman. I'm absolutely in love with this guy right now. I think he does a great job in the ring, and you make him look super weak because he bows out to The Undertaker. A guy with a fiberglass hip.
So I guess the guy that's getting boned this week is not only AJ Styles, but Braun Strowman. Poor use of him. Horrible use. The tag matches, I'm not really down for it. I guess I'm looking forward to, seeing if, Enzo and Cass can win out and get the opportunity to be the number 1 contenders. I'm just not into the tag team wrestling.
Care.
Yeah, nothing too much there. But everyone's looking at Jericho and Kevin Owens. The Undertaker shows up, and it's just every entrance amazing. Comes in, and then the greatest thing ever is just destroy Roman Reigns. So I kind of like that matchup. I'm liking the way the Raw side of WrestleMania is shaking out. Oh my gosh, dude. It's amazing.
What happens when Roman Reigns beats Undertaker?
Oh God, please. You would say that?
Well, look, let's think about this for a second.
Put over Roman Reigns.
This is going to be Undertaker. This is most likely, all right? I'm going to say most likely. I'm 97.9% sure this is going to be Undertaker's final WrestleMania.
I guess you'd have to do it then, yeah.
So he's going to put somebody over, right? That's what you do when you're going out.
Seems unworthy.
Roman Reigns is exactly.
Way unworthy.
Roman Reigns is going to beat Undertaker.
Ugh.
Roman Reigns is going to let that sink in. Listen to the words that I'm saying. Roman Reigns is going to beat the Undertaker. Everybody's going to riot. They are going to burn WrestleMania down. They're going to burn. This is supposed to be the torch passing match, right?
They could save it.
It should have been John Cena.
They could save it. Maybe
it could have been the Demon King. It could have been Seth Rollins. You picked Roman Reigns.
Does it make it any better if you make it
like Roman Reigns
3-way match? Because Undertaker's a little bit old, how is he going to fight a Roman Reigns and not have it be a terrible match? Maybe you insert Braun Strowman and make it a 3-way. Because Undertaker can't wrestle. You know that. His is about the entrance and the win.
So then do you have Braun Strowman win?
Yeah, maybe.
Is that what you do?
Maybe you do.
See, this is why I would have loved if it would have been Undertaker versus Finn Balor or Undertaker versus John Cena, right? Undertaker versus John Cena, it is legitimately the passing of the torch.
But that makes no sense. You just got to have him show up there and fight him. How are you going to make that make sense?
Because he was supposed to, if you remember, when Undertaker first made his appearance, he was supposed to be on SmackDown. That was supposed to be the match. And that would have been a great match. And John Cena even alludes to that in last week's promo that he cuts. And it would have been outstanding because that would have been legitimately the passing of the torch. Okay, I am now done. This is the guy who's basically held down the organization for the last 10 years, and he's going to hold it down for the next, 5 to 10. Or what I would have liked to have seen, because some of the greatest ring entrances ever, you have the dead man, who's kind of creepy, right? You have him matched up against a guy like Finn Balor, whose ring entrance is incredible. And he is kind of creepy with that body paint. I love it. And you have the creepy guy versus the creepy guy. And you know who wins? A creepy guy. And you know who else wins? The WWE Universe. We all win because it's creepy guy on creepy guy. And it would be incredible. And there's your passing of the torch as Undertaker bows out and gives the new creepy guy title and mantle to Finn Balor, who looks like a guy who you can build the WWE Universe around for the next 5 to 10 to 15 years.
See, you and I are smart marks. We knew it. In our meeting, we just wrote that, AJ Styles is going to get boned. We knew it. It was simple. We knew it. We're smart marks, meaning that we knew what was coming. It was obvious because of the trend that we saw. I mean, literally, the path is AJ Styles is going to fight maybe Shane McMahon, which would be a disaster.
Yep.
But I don't know what's going down with that. I'm just totally, uninvested in what's going on with AJ Styles right now. He comes out with everybody. Randy Orton. He comes out with a match when he first started. Everybody he's wrestled, Dean Ambrose, Chris Jericho, everybody that AJ Styles has stepped foot with The Miz, anybody at all, I don't know if you fought him or not, but anybody at all that AJ Styles has fought, it's a great match.
James Ellsworth.
James Ellsworth.
James Ellsworth.
So Tuesday night he fights Randy Orton, a great match, and I knew I turned it in right at 9:31. Boom, his entrance hits. I'm like, okay, they're gonna let him go 25 minutes. That's awesome. But I knew at the end that it was actually great writing and great matchmaking where he fakes the move that he does, and Randy Orton gets ready to do the RKO. He stops, then comes, misses the 450 splash. AJ Styles misses the splash, and then there's the RKO out of nowhere. But in the end, it's just like Randy Orton. He's been there, done that. You need new, fresh ideas. I understand there's a rivalry with Bray Wyatt, but you don't even have Bray Wyatt on SmackDown.
No,
you have a 2-hour show. And let me talk about SmackDown real fast. A quick review. It was poorly written. There were basically, I would say, if you're looking for 2 of the worst TV segments in 2017, the Alexa Bliss segment was horrible. The Shane McMahon, Daniel Bryan segment, well, I can't even rank those 2 segments. Were probably 2 of the worst, poorly written, uninteresting television segments. I look at them, I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? They're just blabbing on and on. I am not interested. I'm like, what is going on here? It's like, you would think that segments were put on a Monday after a pay-per-view. It was Tuesday. You hadn't all that time to prepare, and you put on 2 of the worst segments, and then you have, okay, you would think that boyfriend and girlfriend that wrestle in a match together could figure out how to do the five knuckle shuffle together.
Yeah,
it was disjointed.
It was bad.
I was like, what is going on here? Is everyone like on a day
Nikki
off?
Bella did a bad attitude adjustment.
It was horrible.
She did it wrong. Even the wife called it out. She was like, she landed wrong.
Yeah,
Yes.
SmackDown was an F show, which is surprising because I thought it was a better show with the talent that they have, but they misused it. It was like an event after a pay-per-view in the way in which it was booked and executed. And basically, it was AJ Styles. If you ever replay it on the network, which is a great investment at $9.99, I would just say watch the last 30 minutes with Randy Orton and AJ Styles and just watch the reviews because the rest of the show was garbage.
You know what? Can I point something out that I noticed with the AJ Styles match? And I don't know if he was doing it for the show or if this was just maybe the way he felt. It looked as though AJ Styles seemed to shy away from the moment when he was initially wrestling Randy Orton. It looked as though he was a little tentative going into that match, and maybe it looked as though he didn't want to be in that match. Something seemed to miss at the very start of that match. As the match kind of progressed, it looked like he got a little bit more comfortable with Randy. I don't know if it's just that Randy is a very large man, right? He's tall. He's what, 6'3" to 6'5"? I'm not sure. John Cena, I think, somewhere a little bit smaller, maybe 6 foot tall. But John Cena is built like a brick shithouse. So I don't know I don't think physically he was intimidated by Randy Orton. It just seemed as though he shied away from the moment, as though he didn't want to be there. And looking back at how the match ended, we both knew how the match was going to end. It makes total sense that he wouldn't want to be there. Basically, he just lost his spot at WrestleMania. And now you're going to turn around and you're going to sell me on him wrestling Shane McMahon. You know what I don't need at a WrestleMania pay-per-view? I don't need
McMahon, yeah.
I don't need any McMahons. I don't need any of them. I don't need to see Stephanie on Raw ever. I don't need to hear her on Raw ever. I don't need to see Triple H in a WrestleMania match. But you know what? If Seth Rollins can just annihilate him, I'm cool with that. I don't need to see Vince ever on a WrestleMania, and I don't need to see Shane McMahon sitting there doing something silly like jumping off of a cage through a table or jumping into a Titantron or jumping off of a Titantron. I don't need any of these things. I don't. I really don't.
Do you know what every WrestleMania from here on out needs?
What's that?
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo, right here, I'm the man. Woo!
Great DocNJock Wrestling Report.
Segue.
You got it, brother. So this is the
I like how you
Doctors
did
in
that.
Session, segueing into what's on your mind. I know you got some great questions lined up. Be a little bit quicker version. I know because we got the Tigers to talk about in the second half of the podcast, but I'm interested to see what you got going on in your mind, and the Doctor is in session. What do you got, sir?
So I want to know how impressed you were by Tori Petry. Now, she covers the Detroit Lions for their website. She ended up running the 40, and she did it in 5.98 seconds. Mind you, she did it in high heels. How awesome is it that, 1, a girl, 2, a girl wearing high heels, and 3, she's just like us. She's just a random Joe, or in this case, a random Jill, who covers the Lions, He loves the Lions, writes for their website, goes out there, runs the 40, and does it in a time that would make Tom Brady proud.
And she made national news. Huffington Post got onto it. Definitely Twitter saw it and was like, whoa, she did it in heels. Imagine what she could do not in heels. But it was one of those things where, to set the scene at the Combine, it definitely is a TV show, but they have a setup there where the reporters indoors can go in and run some of the drills. They have a 40-yard dash. Rich Eisen is known year in, year out for going out there and doing the 40-yard dash.
Did she run it better than Rich?
I don't think so,
The
no.
whole run. I mean, Rich Eisen's first time he ran it was absolutely brutal. It was like 6.8 seconds. He's gotten better because he trains for it now.
No, but it's a great moment on television. It's a great PR thing for her. It made national news. It's great stuff, I think that more and more of what we want to see now from television shows is something outside the box. Heck, we did it. I had Vito run the 40-yard dash outside the office, and I thought earlier in the week, is it corny to see everybody trying to do these drills? But when I thought about it, no. Everyone wants to see how these guys run and how average people run compared. Definitely, I couldn't go out there and do a damn near 4.22. I ain't no Ross, but Vito is. Damn, Vito definitely tied the mark, as pointed out by our own Jerry Mallory. He tied the mark of Kelvin Megatron Johnson. So good stuff there. I want to see these kind of things. It's something outside the box because, geekniks like us will sit there and watch the drills and all that kind of stuff and how the quarterback throws and what angle and stuff like that. But for the outside person, for somebody that's tuning in maybe for only 15 minutes a day, something like that makes news. And it's good for her. Hell, sign her up. See if she can, be a trailblazer. Maybe she'll be one of the first NFL coaches out there if she ever wants to go down that road.
Nice. Should the Lions maybe look at investing in her to play edge for them at that time?
I think what she does now is excellent. She's a great PR person. She does great videos, great articles. She gets some information because she works with the Lions. She does a good job. She doesn't follow us. She's showing up on other podcasts, but whatever.
Maybe we got to reach out to her. I don't know. All right, let's move on here. Moving on. In a recent NHL general managers meeting, team officials have basically been tasked with coming up with creative rule changes to make the NHL much more exciting for fans, for television, for basically helping draw some ratings. What do you think the league should incorporate to make the game much more exciting for fans?
Yeah, man, I read around and looked around some things and kind of thought and talked about with other people. There's been ideas of maybe adding and changing the point system, maybe giving 3 points for a win, or taking out the penalty shots or a shorter schedule to make the game different. But for me, I start with one thing, and that's a television presentation. And it's been talked about football too. First thing you can do to make a game better is shorten it just a little bit, which is maybe take out one spot, 1 5-minute window per period, maybe you take that out. Now, the idea is you keep people around the neighborhood of maybe 2 hours in a game. If you can shorten it from 2.5 hours, maybe to 2 hours, I think now you get more people's attention, like college basketball. Yes, in terms of 3 points for a win, here's what you do. If you don't want to change the point system and you want to keep it similar and not add points, here's what you do. You don't get a point for getting to overtime. Just take that away, because what it does is it makes people feel like it's like a participation award. Like, hey, you get to overtime, you play for a point. It's kind of stupid. So I would be of the opinion, if you want to change the point system, just go back to the way it was. Maybe after this whole gimmicky thing with the 3-on-3 and the shootout, it hasn't done a whole lot. I'm a traditionalist. I would just play overtime, and if both teams tie, you get a point. And if the team wins, you get 2 points, and you go on from there. Soccer has ties. Hockey had ties. I'm not of the opinion you have to give 3 points for a win. I think that then you're going to have 150 points, 160 points in a season. I don't need all that. I just need something where you go in a situation where you just maybe bring back what was good before. Eliminate the 3-on-3, the shootout. It makes no sense. Some people have talked about making the nets higher and wider. Some people have talked about a 72-game schedule. Some people have talked about maybe fewer teams in the postseason. All that I don't think is needed. I think the game of hockey, if you really are purist, is a pretty good game. You just have to maybe tweak a couple things in terms of the presentation. Just tweak maybe, shorten the game to maybe 2 hours, 2 hours, 15 minutes. And I personally like the 4 rounds of the playoffs. I like the beginning. I grew up when, the song, when CBC would have that great playoff song, and it was just so amazing. And then it's, the playoff beers would end up, starting off being stubble, then end up being amazing playoff beers. I don't want to change it too much. I think that just maybe, cutting back on the points and making the television presentation much better would be something that would be much better in terms of making the game of hockey better. And maybe you don't need to expand anymore. Maybe you need, probably the simplest thing you could do is probably contract the league. Less teams, sprinkle out the talent.
I think I agree with you there. And by the way, Brett Burns, you ever get a chance, check his beard out. It's outstanding.
Yes, sir.
Looks almost like a homeless man. Love it. All right, stick with some round ball action here. Do you like how Stan Van Gundy has been riding the hot hand at the point guard position? Basically rotating Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith based upon how they're playing and how they're contributing to the team and the team's success.
Yeah, so everyone's talking about Reggie Jackson. Stan Van Gundy did a good job and said, listen, you all are pointing to Reggie Jackson and making him the scapegoat. He's part of the problem, but the entire team could also do much better. So he did a great job diffusing it. And then he came up with a solution. He said, and what I like what Stan Van does, he kind of sprinkles stuff out there, maybe to see how engaged the reaction of what's going on. If you paid attention last week, there were kind of some sprinklings that he said, maybe I'm considering changing the starting lineup. So that was a subliminal message, a good job. I noticed that. And then all of a sudden, because I was at the Joe Louis Arena, he did not change the lineup. He still had Reggie Jackson, but there was a new wrinkle, and what he's doing now is 6-minute shifts. I love it. I love the idea in that by the fourth quarter, you realize who's got the hot hand. If it's Ish in the fourth quarter, hell, you keep him out there. And what it does is it keeps both guys fresh. It's a genius idea. Great job by Stan Van Gundy, and what you've seen now is Reggie Jackson's back, making some, having some amazing performances. And I like what he's done in that he allows Ish Smith and Reggie Jackson to take breaks of 6 minutes, which allows them to be fresh in the fourth quarter, and it's a good thing. And ahead of tonight's game versus Cleveland, one of their last performances, I thought the game versus the Bulls was outstanding. I think they're playing a little bit better brand. They're definitely near 500, and they're solidified right now. I think as of this recording, they're tied for 7th in the East, and hey, they're trending upward. They're playing a little bit better brand of basketball. But you did see, though, you have to acknowledge, when you watch the Pistons, the offensive flow with Ish is much better, more energized, and the combination of Ish, Marcus Morris, Stanley Johnson, or when Ish Smith is out there with Marcus Morris and Lure, they have more energy. They run the ball. It's not a stagnant offense. And sometimes you see with Reggie Jackson, if he's not making the shots, the offense gets bogged down. It's not moving. The ball's not moving fast enough. With Ish Smith, the problem is, though, he's not an efficient, he's not a great shooter. So he's not a guy that you can make out there and make him play 40 minutes a game. But, hey, 24 minutes for Ish, 24 minutes for Jackson. We can do something here.
Can we combine Reggie and Ish? Make one.
Reggie Smith.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
The combination, Reggie Smith, greatest point guard that the Pistons have been looking for, man. Good stuff.
Hey, outstanding job in Doxson session.
Yes, sir.
Great job, sir.
Let's take our final timeout, regroup here, maybe take a shot, come back, and we'll talk about the Detroit Tigers. And let's see if Justin Verlander is correct. Is spring training something we should be paying attention to? Should we be paying attention to the awful performances of the 3 pitchers that everyone has in their crosshairs? Hey, Justin, I know you said maybe potentially that it's not something that we all need to give a shit about, but when your manager says something, maybe we do. We'll talk about it next on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You're listening to Doc and Jock.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
Yes, sir. Thanks again for everybody that's downloaded this fine podcast. Each and every week, getting nice new compliments, people finding the podcast on new platforms. We just added TuneIn to another platform where you can listen to Doc and Jock. So now you can find us on Stitcher, Podbay, Podomatic, DetroitSportsPodcast.com, iTunes, the TuneIn app. All you got to do is, if you're interested in finding out information about us, is just Google Detroit Sports Podcast, and you'll find out that this is one of the podcasts that many people do listen to and interact with, and things like that. But we got to talk about in this final segment, quick segment. We'll talk about the Detroit Tigers because it is spring training. Brad Ausmus, I'm finally liking. He's coming out and saying, "Listen, this act is getting old." Mark Lowe, Pelfrey, Sanchez going in, performance after performance and putting out garbage performances is really wearing on him. And he's coming out and finally saying it. And I know that it's only spring training, but we do pay attention because spring training is a spot where you get a chance to evaluate some of the talent and you start evaluating some of the trends. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that these three guys that we just talked about are going to be crappy, but when you had the season that you had last year, you got to come out in spring training and fire on all cylinders. So Justin Verlander tried to defend the boys and said, listen, this is only spring training. I know everyone's upset. I know everybody's griping. Hey, it's just spring training. You don't have to give a shit. But we do. And the reason why is a lot of money is allocated to Lowe, Pelfrey, and Sanchez, and they're not performing. When you start hearing the words, and pay attention out there, the reporters are doing great work. You're hearing words like buyout. You're hearing words like maybe not being on the team. And so we have to take it seriously. And I'm not one of the guys that just poo-poo spring training, but I know it's practice. I know it's something where maybe a Justin Verlander will go out there one day and just work on a curveball and just throw it after throw it and see how it's going to progress. But that's different. Verlander's had good performances. The starters have done a pretty decent job. But the biggest thing that everyone's looking at and nervous about is that bullpen. And those three guys are not performing. And if I'm Brad Ausmus, to hell. If I'm getting fired, I'm going down with my guys. And I'm not coming to Detroit. Leave them in Lakeland. If I'm Brad Ausmus and you want to save your job, you go out there and you buck the general manager and you start saying, listen, I don't want Pelfrey. I don't want Sanchez. I don't want Lowe. Put them in the minors or do what you got to do. Buy them out. Because if they're going to be on this team, we're not going to win. He's got to come out and say it because it's his ass on the line. If I'm Brad Ausmus, those guys are not on my team. You're not going to win with them. If they're on the team, if one of those three is on the team, I'll tell you right now, and I've said it last year, and I said it the year before, we all said that I thought that Brad Ausmus wasn't the guy, but if you're aware right now, sitting here on a Thursday, that your guys, those three that you're paying money to are not going to help you win, you cannot have them on your team at any cost, period.
I agree. And here's the thing, all right? I think Brad Ausmus is starting to kind of feel a little bit of the hot seat here. I mean, this is spring training, and look, Justin Verlander does make a good point. It's spring training. Calm down. But there is some concern here because you've got one of the worst ERAs as a team right now. Look, everybody in spring training is basically working on something. The job is to get the ball over the plate. It's to put a little bit of movement on the ball, and it's to sit there and kind of work out some kinks because we're a couple weeks away from when the games actually do start to matter. The big issue I'm kind of taking with all this, Brad Ausmus is upset right now about spring training. You're showing more life and more energy about spring training than you did all last season when the games did matter, and more than when the games mattered 2 seasons ago. So what's going on here, Brad? What's the real issue here? I know that you're not really all that upset because you get it. You've been a pro. You understand what the hell's going on during spring training. Are you more upset that the guys, what they're showing out there, isn't really translating, and you know in 3 weeks it's not going to translate, and you're going to end up losing your job before the season's over? Is that what you're really upset about? So as fans, should we really be upset here? Should we maybe start looking a little deeper at what's really going on in spring training, and that this team's going to be absolutely deplorable when opening day rolls around? And look, I know most Detroit fans are going to be drunk out of their mind on opening day. They're not going to really care. But the following Saturday, when they sober up and they start to kind of put 2 and 2 together and they realize what kind of crap we're rolling out there for a pitching staff, yeah, it's going to be pretty abominable. It's going to be awful.
You know what? As a public service announcement, we'll be the DW, Designated Watchers. You all get drunk, throw them back. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. We'll look at the intricacies. I know I will be, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Everything that you're saying is correct. I know he feels the pressure because he's got to win. You got to win, and when your general manager doesn't add pieces, he's basically saying, hey, take what you got, and I just would say...
Figure it out.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. So if you're Brad Ausmus and you know you got dead weight, what do you do? Because you can't disrespect your general manager because that'll get your ass fired. But how do you go about this in meetings? Do you just say, listen, their performance is ineffective? Do you do what he's doing now and continue to just lambaste them in the media? Because the pressure's hot. They're allocated big money. $8 million for Pelfrey, $16.8 for Anibal Sanchez. You can't have these guys being paid that much money and being gone. But if I'm Brad Ausmus, I status quo. Keep blasting them. Every poor performance, you go out there, you blast them, you force the hand, and you make everybody be aware that Alavila's got guys on this team that aren't going to help me win. He's got to say it.
You can't blame him for it. I mean, look, do you feel confident if you're going to roll out with Anibal Sanchez, Mike Pelfrey?
Dude has no
Mark
answers.
Lowe?
No answers. Nothing's
None.
getting better.
Those guys are gonna submarine this team. They're gonna sabotage it. Look, Justin Verlander, I'm okay with, right? Fulmer, I'm okay with. Daniel Norris, I need to see a little bit more from. Jordan Zimmerman, I need you to get through spring training healthy. That's the real key here, right? And then after that, what do you got? Matt Boyd's a guy who I've been high on, but I'm not seeing enough. And this bullpen is taking no steps forward. So yeah, Brad Ausmus should shine a light on all this, should call these guys out. I think the bigger issue is what he's going to have to sit there and roll out there, because you can't sit there and you can't DFA a guy like Sanchez. You can't. You should be able to, but you can't. He costs too much money. You're on the hook for at least $21 million of that contract, because he's going to make 16 and change this year. And then
this is bad.
Yes, it is, Adam. It is bad. And then you're going to have to buy his ass out for $5 million the next season. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to suck it up and eat that porridge all season.
And unfortunately, you hate to see it, but those three guys are going to be a scapegoat if they're on the team. Every time they come out, the pressure's going to be on. How are they going to garner support? What are they going to do when they come out in pressure situations? Anibal Sanchez is battling confidence as well as a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. You can't get guys out. You're not seeing anything that leads you to believe that Pelfrey, Sanchez, and Lowe can go in there and get guys out. They're getting rocked. And that's not like, unfortunately, people are saying it. Buster Olney really dropped the hammer. He said
he said they're like the worst team
in
all of baseball right now.
He said on Wednesday in a tweet that if there were spring training power rankings, the Tigers would be the worst team in baseball. Ooh, you don't want to hear that.
No.
That's tough to hear, right?
That's brutal. I mean, look, this team is 3-10 right now. It's spring training, so it doesn't mean a whole lot. But
they're getting smoked. It's not like they're losing. They're getting crushed.
Issue. That's the issue. What you're seeing out there, you got to remember, everybody is rolling guys out there who aren't very good, and everybody is working on something. The thing is, the things that your guys are working on, it's not paying dividends. It doesn't look good. You got guys throwing a baseball over the plate and there's no movement. There's no life. It's essentially me and you going up there and basically tossing batting practice for other teams. This is not going to be a very good season for your Detroit Tigers if this continues.
And do your homework. If you feel Doc and Jock are negative, you feel everybody's piling on, look at their stat lines. 3, 4, 5 hits, 4, 5 runs, home runs given up. It's just the eyeball test. We're not even going into the advanced metrics. We're not even going to ERA. We're not even going to on-base percentage, hits versus or strikeouts per 9 inning. We're not going to any of that yet. We're just going by the eye test, and these guys are getting crushed. They're going out there against major league talent, and the offense is winning. And that's not supposed to be the case at this point in time. The pitchers are supposed to be ahead of the batters at this point in time, so they can't get outs. And it's one of those things where you look and you say, okay, this team with those three guys is not a better team. Addition by subtraction. You let them go, hey, you eat the money, and I think you'll even garner more positive, because I think you sense it, I sense it. The season's upcoming, and I think nobody has any expectations. It'll just be, hey, I'm going to go to 4 or 5 games this year, get bombed out of my ass, hope they don't lose, go see Fulmer pitch. There's not too many storylines. Maybe, go see how many home runs Justin Upton has, if Nick Castellanos can have a good year. But in terms of baseball, the geeks and their expectations, most people think that this could be a middle-of-the-road team, and we're not going to have any expectations as we sit here today.
This is a team that the players have come out and said it. They feel the pressure. They feel like something is different this year because they know that if they don't get it together, this team's broken up next year. It's going to be different.
Maybe middle of this year they get sold off.
Exactly.
Because you had the Red Wings do it, and maybe you just have to, unfortunately, say that, hey, we need them to kind of fall apart so that the selling process begins. I mean, it took the Wings losing. They tried their best. They absolutely tried all the PR and said, hey, we're going to go with it. We're going to wait and see, da-da-da-da. By the trade deadline, the Wings sucked. They sold off. So, unfortunately, for the betterment of the squad, they have to lose so that some of these pieces can go to really start the rebuild because, again, similar to the Wings, similar to a lot of teams in Detroit, they're stuck in the middle. They have talent, but they're not willing. And unfortunately, I think I want to give credit to Valeni. He said it, or somebody in the sports media said it. I do want to give him credit. They said that, you know what selling is? It's sports bankruptcy. It's like in order to improve your team, you have to go bankrupt. And how you go bankrupt is have a terrible year. Sports bankruptcy just means that you reallocate. You reallocate the funds, you tank, and you add assets. What a great concept. The Tigers have to go bankrupt in terms of losing, and in order to build through the draft, in order to get higher picks, to get more talent, they have to go sports bankrupt, and they have to reallocate and add more talent, and they cannot go down this road, because this year is another year of, hoping that they can do a lot of things. But in my honest opinion, and I'll say it again, I've said it 1,000 times, I think they should have sold 2 years ago. They didn't do it. This year will be a year where they're going to have great moments. They're going to have down moments. But if it all plays out, you're going to have right around 86 wins and just outside of the playoffs, or in the play-in game, in the wild card play-in game, and lose.
For the longest time, the Detroit Tigers have been the bastion of what a solid baseball program should look like. I mean, yeah, they've had their faults, right? And no team is perfect. And this team has always struggled with their bullpen, but they were able to sit there and cover most of that up with a very strong rotation, bringing in guys who can hit the baseball out of the park and provide you with an entertaining product. It doesn't look like this year is going to be that year. It looks like you said, they're going to have to start selling some pieces off probably middle of the season. Just try to keep some of your young arms up here. Hopefully they can work on things. Hopefully a guy like Joe Jimenez shows you a little something, and you're able to kind of work through the season.
And I want to preface it. This team could get to the postseason. This team could win a round.
They do have talent.
Yeah, they have talent. But what I'm saying is, and the way I want to look at it is, what is this team's potential to win it all? Win the World Series? I don't think that the percentage is less than 5%. Yeah, this team can get to the postseason. Maybe you call that a successful year. But my thinking is, and the way I'm judging it is, what are the Tigers' chances to win the World Series? And I say if it's 0, then you got to start the process of rebuilding to get to that path, not to just get to the postseason and bomb out. So you can't win with that bullpen. You can't win with that talent.
You've got Hall of Famers. Justin Verlander, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
You got assets.
You've got Miguel Cabrera. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. You've got talented guys. JD Martinez is a talented guy.
Ian Kinsler,
talented
Nick
guy.
Castellanos, Justin
Exactly.
Upton. You got some talent.
You've got good guys at positions of need for this team and for other teams. It just doesn't look like you have enough talent all the way around. And for a team to come out and say, hey, we're looking at trying to adjust our books. And then when you're seeing the results in spring training like you're seeing right now, it doesn't give you a whole lot to be hopeful for as you head into the regular season. That's kind of where it's at.
So enjoy your $14 beer at Comerica Park on opening day. They sold out in damn near 4 minutes. Biggest party of the year. We're getting closer. They're going to play Boston. It's going to be a good opening weekend. It'll be fun, and we'll have an opportunity to do fun stuff with the network and provide the great coverage. And it's a good thing, man. Great podcast. I enjoyed the time. Hell, we said we want to go 80 minutes. We went 90. It's no big deal.
It's what always happens.
It always happens. Turn on the mics. We keep the studio lights on. We turn on the mics, and we have a good old time. That's why we love doing this podcast each and every week. 187 episodes down, 13 away from the magical 200 podcast. Thank you, cuz. I appreciate your time.
Hey, man. Another good show. Another good time. Let's go Lions free agency. Let's get this deal done. Let's make this team much better for next season, right?
No doubt about it. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. See everybody next Thursday. No doubt about it.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.